Peter Parker opened his eyes to fire. Not fire that burned, but fire that lingered, cold and hot at the same time. A heatless inferno that licked at his skin without consuming it. He was not in flesh. He knew that instantly. His body was gone. What remained was something less, a husk of thought and memory bound into pain. When he tried to move, he found the ground beneath him was not stone or ash, but a shifting mass of webbing. Webs spun from agony, stretching across an infinite void. Each thread pulsed faintly, a memory tether, a sin laid bare. And he knew instinctively, these were his sins. He staggered, or the soul's mimicry of staggering, across the endless threads. Images rose and fell in the firelight. Gwen falling, Ben dying, Norman's maniacal grin as the glider pierced him, Harry's face twisted in hate, Mary Jane crying in the rain, Electro's lightning burning across the city, his lightning when rage and addiction had consumed him. His hands had killed, his lies had scarred, his power had corrupted. Each image replayed as if the universe itself demanded he remember again and again. "This is where the heroes come," a voice whispered, soft and venomous, echoing from nowhere and everywhere at once. Not the saints, not the martyrs, the ones who think they deserve absolution, but never ask for it. Welcome, Peter Parker, to the kingdom of Ash. The flames bent, coiling inward like curtains pulling back, and from them stepped a figure clad in crimson shadows. Mephisto. Not horned, not grotesque, but regal in a way that mocked divinity. His eyes burned like dying suns, and when he smiled, the fire around Peter leaned closer, eager for command. "You," Peter rasped, though his voice had no throat to shape it. "I don't..." "Oh, you do," Mephisto said lightly, strolling across the web as though it were marble. "You know who I am. Every spider does. They whisper my name in fear, in dread, in denial. And yet here you are, another insect caught between my teeth." Peter turned away, but every direction was fire, memory, torment. There was no horizon, no sky, no escape. Just himself. Every failure replayed with merciless clarity. Ben bleeding in the street, Gwen's neck snapping, Harry's glare when he realized Peter had lied to him for years, Aunt May's tears when Peter confessed he wasn't strong enough. The more he tried to turn from them, the louder they screamed. "You've lived a life of excuses," Mephisto murmured, circling. "Power, responsibility. Always the boy running into the fire, never realizing the fire was already inside him. You want release, Peter Parker. You want freedom from this endless replay." Peter laughed bitterly. "Freedom from hell." Mephisto's grin widened. "Not freedom, return." The words struck through him like a blade. For a moment, Peter saw a glimmer of the surface. New York, endless towers gleaming in the sun. He saw Harry's world, the fractured Spider-Verse, all the countless others he'd touched and failed. He saw a chance, however faint, to step beyond this nightmare. "You can't be serious," Peter whispered. "Oh, but I am. I am the only serious thing in all realities. And here is my offer, Spider-Man. I will give you a body, power. Not the power you squandered, but something greater. A spark that burns worlds. A web that binds more than rooftops. You will rise not as the boy who failed everyone, but as the man who cannot fail again. In return, your soul, bound to me forevermore." The words should have broken him. They should have sent him running into the fire, rejecting temptation. But Peter felt something deeper than fear. Anger. Anger at himself. At the web that had played him like a pawn. At the endless cycle of sacrifice and loss. He thought of young Peter, the boy who had given his life to stop the corruption. He thought of Harry, who had stared him down like a broken reflection. He thought of all the worlds where Spider-Man had died, only to be reborn. "What if I don't accept?" Peter asked, voice trembling. "Then you stay here," Mephisto replied simply, arms spread. A ghost among ghosts, watching every failure, every scream, every bloodstain you left behind. Forever, or until you finally unravel and become nothing at all. That is the fate of the noble spider. Peter closed his eyes. He saw Gwen again. Her fall slowed, her scream unending. He saw Ben clutching at his wound, whispering with great power over and over, until it became unbearable. And he saw Mary Jane reaching for him, only for him to vanish from her life again and again. When he opened his eyes, there was no hesitation. Do it. Mephisto smiled, and for the first time, Peter saw the fangs behind the lips. The deal was struck not with a handshake, but with fire itself. The flame surged up, wrapping around Peter, burning his soul into shape. The husk became flesh again, burning flesh, scarred flesh, flesh rewritten by hell's ink. Claws tore through his hands. Talons sprouted where fingers once were. His mask formed not from cloth, but from scorched bone, a mockery of the spider emblem crawling across his chest like a brand. As the fire subsided, Peter Parker stood again. Not a boy, not a man, something else. Mephisto whispered, almost amused, "I've made a mistake, haven't I?" Peter turned, eyes glowing with the venom of countless lifetimes. His voice was his own, yet not, layered, broken, crawling like static. "You gave me back what I never deserved. Now I'll take what I was always owed." The fire bent around him. The web beneath his feet trembled. For the first time, hell itself recoiled, and far above, across the living multiverse, Harry Osborn stirred in his sleep, heart racing as though he had heard the voice of his enemy once more. The nights in New York had grown quieter since the Spider Wars. To the people of the city, life had settled back into something almost normal. The skyline glittered, traffic roared, and the old rhythms returned. But to Harry Osborn, nothing was normal anymore. His world was fixed, yes, but his heart had not healed. His sleep was shallow, broken by images of blood on his hands, of webs burning, of Peter's twisted face, snarling with claws outstretched. Even now, months after the Great Reset, Harry woke drenched in sweat, his ears ringing with echoes from a war no one else remembered. By day, he wore the mask of a savior. His Spider-Man swung from rooftop to rooftop, stopping muggings, breaking up robberies, catching cars before they hit the pavement. To the public, he was a symbol of stability after chaos. To himself, he was only keeping busy, because if he stopped moving, if he stopped fighting, the memories would drown him. It was on one such night, perched atop Oscorp Tower, his father's old kingdom, now an empty monument, that Harry began his next move. Spread out across the roof were blueprints and machinery, half-built constructs pulled from designs he barely understood, but had scavenged through old Oscorp files, Richard's schematics, and stolen Stark patents. Circles of wires and glass formed the skeleton of something greater. A chronal lens, a machine capable of peering into timelines. He told himself it was to protect the web, to monitor fractures before they became wars. But deep down, he knew the truth. It was obsession. He was searching for the shadow of a ghost. The first to see this side of him was Mary Jane Watson. Not his Mary Jane, but the MJ from another world. The girl who had been bitten instead of Peter back in 2002. In her world, she had carried the burden of the mask, swinging through Queens with fire-red hair trailing behind her, fighting villains Peter never lived long enough to face. Harry had found her weeks ago, drawn by the familiar pain in her eyes. The same pain of someone who knew too well the price of power. Now she stood at the roof's edge, arms crossed, watching him weld a plate into place on the device. "You're building a bomb," she said finally. Harry didn't look up. It's not a bomb. Then what is it? A way to see, he muttered. Sparks hissed as he sealed a seam. A way to know before it's too late. MJ stepped closer, her voice softer now. Harry, you saved your world. You stopped him. Whatever nightmare you went through, it's over. Why can't you let it rest? At that, Harry finally looked up, and for a moment the mask of calm broke. His eyes were hollow, rimmed with shadows, but burning with something sharp. Because I'm the only one who remembers. Everyone else gets to live like it never happened. But I watched universes die. I watched Peter, my Peter, turn into something I couldn't stop until it was too late. And I saw what happens when we think it's over. It's never over. Not for us. There was no answer to that. MJ only turned away, staring at the city. She didn't say it aloud, but she feared what he was becoming. Over the next weeks, Harry's obsession carried him further. He began to travel, first in secret, then openly, using fragments of his unfinished machine, improvised portals stitched with his spider tech and Oscorp resources. He stepped into other worlds, hunting not for enemies, but for allies he believed he could trust. His second recruit was a war-weary Spider-Man clad in red and gold, the Iron Spider. In his world, the Civil War had never ended cleanly. He had chosen Stark's side and never left it, becoming a weapon of the state rather than a friendly neighborhood hero. His eyes were colder, his movements more precise, his faith in compromise long since dead. Harry approached him in silence, watching as this Peter subdued a militia group with surgical brutality. When Harry offered him a place, Iron Spider only said, "If there's another war coming, I'll fight, but don't mistake me for your Peter Parker. I buried that part of me a long time ago." Harry didn't argue. He didn't need Peter Parker. He needed soldiers. The third came from darker soil still. In a world where the symbiote had never been shed, Peter had remained bound to the black suit, and yet, against all odds, he had bent it to his will instead of the other way around. This Spider-Man was leaner, sharper, his suit pulsing faintly as if alive, tendrils curling and uncurling at his command. He was not gentle. He snapped bones. He broke jaws. He ended fights with fear rather than mercy. But he was Spider-Man still, driven, responsible, willing to protect. Harry found him atop a ruined church, tendrils lashing into shadows where thugs tried to hide. When asked to join, symbiote Peter tilted his head, black lenses narrowing. "I know what obsession looks like," he said. "I live with it every day. If you think you can handle that weight, I'll follow you. But if you break, don't expect me to pull you back." The recruitment continued, each spider different, each scarred by their world in unique ways. Andrew Garfield's Peter hardened into a killer after Gwen's death, who stalked alleys with fists that never held back. Ultimate Spider-Man, young and bright-eyed, full of hope, but wary of Harry's shadow. Flash Thompson's Spider-Man, brutal and vengeful, who wore the mask like a weapon. Piece by piece, Harry's small army formed. Yet even as they gathered, even as the 8 began to train, something unspoken pulsed beneath it all. Distrust. They felt it in Harry's eyes, in the way he spoke of timelines and incursions, as though they were inevitabilities, not warnings. He was already speaking of the next war, of the enemy that will return. And though no one else could see it, no one else could hear it, Harry knew. Somewhere in the void between worlds, his enemy's voice was waiting. And in the stillness of his apartment, when the machine was quiet and the city finally slept, Harry would sit with his head in his hands, whispering the name he couldn't forget. Peter. The chamber was not built for comfort. Oscorp Tower's lower levels had long been abandoned, sealed off after the scandals and disasters of Norman Osborn's reign. Harry had claimed them for his own, stripping the rust and debris away until only a skeletal bunker remained. Rows of machinery lined the walls, unfinished portals, half-built drones, shelves of salvaged tech from worlds Harry had crossed. It was a place of shadows and humming engines, a war room, masquerading as a tomb. It was here the 8 came together for the first time. MJ Spider sat near the edge of the long steel table, mask pulled back, her red hair tied into a tight braid. She leaned on her palm, watching the others with a mixture of exhaustion and skepticism. Across from her, Ultimate Spider-Man swung one leg restlessly under his chair, his youthful energy unable to settle, his wide eyes flicking between the others with awe and unease. Beside him, Symbiote Peter stood instead of sitting, his black suit rippling with quiet motion, tendrils occasionally slithering out, as if impatient for violence. Flash Thompson's Spider-Man matched him for presence, broad-shouldered in his armored suit, mask off to reveal a hard face set into a permanent scowl. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Killer leaned back with arms crossed, his mask hanging from his belt, expression unreadable, but eyes dark. Every movement of his body carried weight. He was not here for trust or camaraderie, only necessity. Iron Spider stood nearest the machinery, his red and gold armor gleaming under the bunker's lights, mechanical legs twitching slightly as though ready to strike. His gaze remained fixed on Harry, cold, calculating. And at the far end, Harry Osborn himself, mask under his arm, stood behind the steel table, his hands resting against the surface. He looked at them not as allies, not as family, but as soldiers. "This is it," Harry said at last, voice quiet but firm. "The 8. Each of you comes from a world where you carried the mask. Each of you knows the cost, but together we're more than survivors. We're the safeguard, the ones who make sure the web never breaks again." There was silence at first. Then Ultimate Spider-Man raised a hand hesitantly. Question. What exactly are we protecting it from? Because from where I'm sitting, the web looks fine. My world's fine. Most of yours. Well, not perfect, but alive. If you're telling me we're forming a Spider League just because you're worried, Harry's eyes hardened. You weren't there. You didn't see him. You didn't watch universes collapse. Ultimate frowned. But you did. Alone. How do we know it's not just in your head? The words struck like a blade, and for a moment Harry said nothing. But it was Symbiote Peter who broke the silence, his voice low, resonant. "The kid doesn't understand, but I do. Once you've seen what the darkness looks like, you never stop seeing it. If Harry says there's a threat, there is. End of story." Flash grunted in agreement. "If there's something coming, I'd rather be ready than dead." Across the table, MJ Spider shook her head. "Or maybe you'd rather follow someone who's already half consumed by obsession. Look around. This isn't a team. It's a bunker. A grave waiting to be filled. You really think this is about saving the web? Or is this just Harry trying to control the one thing he couldn't before?" Her words stung, and Harry almost snapped back, but Iron Spider spoke first. "Control or not, she's right about one thing. This isn't a team. Not yet. We don't trust each other. We don't even trust him." He gestured at Harry with a gauntleted hand. "But trust isn't required. Discipline is. Coordination is. If we're going to stand against something bigger than all of us, then we need to act like soldiers, not children." Andrew Garfield's Spider-Killer leaned forward, finally breaking his silence. "And what happens when the war's over? What happens when there's nothing left to fight? I've seen it before. Soldiers without a war don't stay soldiers. They turn into executioners." His eyes met Harry's. "Tell me, Osborn, Are you building an army or a noose? The air grew heavy with the weight of it. Harry stared at the table, jaw tight, then looked up with fire in his voice. I'm building survival. I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you walk out. But if you stay, you follow my lead. Because I am the only one here who remembers how close we came to losing everything. Silence again. One by one, the spiders shifted, some nodding, some grimacing, none fully convinced. And in the silence, the machine in the corner pulsed faintly, its incomplete circuits crackling with unstable energy. The chronal lens, unfinished yet alive, whispered threads of timelines Harry had already glimpsed. Futures where the web burned. Futures where the spider was hunted. Futures where even the 8 were nothing but corpses. Harry stared at it longer than he meant to, and when he turned back to the others, he caught MJ's eyes on him. She didn't speak, but the fear there was clear. They were 8 now, but they were far from united. And far below, in the pit of hell, something smiled in the fire, feeling the faint tremors of their division, like a hunter scenting blood. The chronal lens thrummed with a sound that was not mechanical, not natural. It was the heartbeat of a living wound. Wires stretched across the Oscorp bunker, plugged into reactors humming with dangerous energy. The device resembled a shattered mirror suspended in a steel frame, shards of glowing glass floating in midair, each piece reflecting not Harry's face, but countless others. Dozens of Harrys, dozens of spiders, each staring back with eyes hollow or bloodshot, some masked, some scarred. The fragments pulsed like a warning, yet Harry could not look away. For weeks he had been refining it, tuning the frequencies of timelines, mapping the strands of the web. He told the others it was a safeguard, a way to monitor incursions before they erupted. But deep inside, Harry was chasing something more personal. He was chasing him, the shadow of Peter Parker, the ghost that still clawed at his mind. Tonight, Harry stood alone at the controls, sweat dripping from his brow, watching the shards flicker. MJ Spider was the first to enter, pulling her mask back to reveal narrowed eyes. Harry, the team's waiting upstairs. We said training would start an hour ago. Harry didn't turn. His hand hovered over a switch that hissed with unstable energy. I just need a few more minutes. I think I found it. Found what? The fracture. The same resonance from before the last war. It's faint, but it's there. If I can lock onto it, I can... You can what? Tear open another hole. MJ's voice rose, sharp. You keep saying this is about protecting the web, but you're chasing shadows. You're chasing him. Harry's hand tightened around the switch. He wanted to deny it, but the words froze in his throat. Because she was right. The others arrived in staggered silence. Flash, looming in his armored suit, arms crossed. Symbiote Peter, tendrils, twitching in unease. Iron Spider, his gold limbs gleaming, gaze fixed on the machine, like it was a weapon of mass destruction. Ultimate Peter, shifting nervously as the tension grew. And behind them, Andrew Garfield's Spider Killer, leaning against the doorway, eyes cold, waiting for the inevitable. This isn't safe, Iron Spider said flatly. Whatever this machine is, it isn't ready. It doesn't even obey physics as we understand them. It doesn't have to, Harry shot back. It just has to work. Flash stepped forward, glaring. You're losing it, Osborn. We didn't sign up to be lab rats. We're supposed to fight threats, not tear open more of them. Harry's jaw clenched. You think I don't know what I'm doing? You think I don't remember? He slammed a fist against the console, eyes wild. I watched him burn universes to ash. I saw the web collapse, and I was the only one who made it back. If you'd seen it, if you'd lived it, you'd be right here with me, doing whatever it takes. The air grew taut. Tendrils writhed across Symbiote Peter's arms, responding to the tension. Ultimate Peter finally blurted, "Harry, stop. Please, just stop before you..." But it was too late. Harry threw the switch. The machine screamed. Shards of the chronolens fused together in a blaze of white light, the air tearing open into a spiraling vortex. The room shook, bolts snapping free, walls groaning, as if the entire tower were about to split. The 8 staggered back as the vortex widened, and through it they saw another New York. But this one was wrong. Skies split by rifts of green lightning, buildings fused into grotesque shapes, people running as shadows consumed the streets. "An incursion," Iron Spider whispered. His voice, normally steel, now cracked. The vortex lashed out, pulling them forward with violent force. MJ clung to the table. Flash dug his boots into the floor. Ultimate cried out as his arm was yanked toward the storm. Harry alone stood still, eyes wide, transfixed by what he saw on the other side. Among the chaos of the fractured city, a figure stood in the center of the street. Claws gleamed in the lightning, eyes glowed red. The mask was familiar but warped. Peter. The machine exploded. The blast hurled them across the chamber. Shards of glass and metal tore through the air. Smoke filled the bunker. Alarms shrieked. When the dust settled, the lens lay in ruin, shattered beyond repair. The vortex was gone, but the echo remained, a scar in the air that pulsed faintly before fading. The spiders staggered to their feet. Ultimate clutched his arm, bleeding. Symbiote Peter's suit writhed frantically, trying to seal gashes across his chest. Flash roared in fury, slamming Harry against the wall. "You almost killed us!" Harry shoved back, eyes wild, voice cracking. "I saw him. He's alive. He's still out there." "No," MJ said sharply, stepping between them. Her face was pale, her voice shaking, but her conviction cut through the chaos. "He's dead, Harry. You're the one bringing him back." The bunker fell into silence, heavy with smoke and the stink of burning wires. The team looked at Harry not with trust, but with doubt, fear, even disgust. And in the silence, Harry realized the truth. He had crossed the line. The fracture had begun. Far below in the pit of hell, evil Spider-Man opened his eyes fully. The deal with Mephisto seared into his flesh, and he smiled, because somewhere across the infinite web, Harry Osborn had just lit the first match. The flames of hell parted like curtains, unveiling a path where none should exist. For what felt like centuries, Peter Parker's soul had been chained to that abyss, replaying every failure, drowning in guilt and fire. But Mephisto's gift had rewritten him. Body, mind, and purpose fused into something else. He had clawed his way free of the pit, carving through demons, breaking bindings older than time itself. Now he stood at the threshold of the living multiverse, and the web of life trembled at his presence. His body was whole, but not human. Jagged black bone formed claws across his hands. Crimson veins pulsed like molten wires beneath his skin, and his mask seemed burned into his flesh. An eternal grin of skeletal fangs, spider emblem etched in fire across his chest. He had no need of fabric, no need of webs. He was the web now, a walking tear in its design. He inhaled. For the first time in eons, he tasted air again. Not brimstone, not ash, but the living breath of a world above. It filled him, sharp and intoxicating. He stepped forward, and the web itself bent beneath him, strands snapping, echoes of universes crying out in pain. He emerged into a city. Not his city. This New York was smaller, dirtier, its skyline warped by years of neglect, a universe Harry had never touched. The streets were empty save for the stench of smoke and blood. In the distance, fire consumed a tenement building, its windows screaming with light. And then he saw him. A Spider-Man. Young, lean, clad in a patched costume of red and blue. His shoulders trembled with exhaustion as he staggered out of the building, a child clutched in one arm, soot streaking across his mask. He set the boy down, ruffling his hair with a tired reassurance, before turning toward the flames again. Evil Spider-Man's claws flexed, his throat tightened. He knew this boy. Not personally, not from this world, but in every world, there was always a boy. Always someone to save. Always someone to lose. The cycle mocked him. The young Spider-Man froze. His head snapped toward the street, lenses widening at the sight of the figure emerging from the shadows. Who are you? The voice that answered was Peter's, but deeper, layered with the growl of something that wasn't human. I'm what comes after you fail. The young Spider-Man leapt, firing webs that never reached their mark. Evil Spider-Man caught them mid-air, the threads snapping against his claws like brittle string. With a flick, he yanked the boy from the air and slammed him into the pavement, cracking the street beneath them. The child screamed. No, the young hero cried, crawling forward, hand outstretched. Evil Spider-Man crouched beside the boy, claws resting lightly against his throat. He leaned close, his burning eyes reflecting in the hero's lenses. This is where you learn the truth. The web doesn't need saviors. It needs predators. And with a swift strike, he tore the young Spider-Man's chest open. The hero screamed, convulsed, and then fell silent, his mask torn, his blood pooling into the cracks of the street. The boy wailed, scrambling backward, but evil Spider-Man only stood, towering, the hero's blood dripping from his claws. He raised his hand. The blood sizzled, absorbed into his flesh, and his body pulsed with new energy. Threads of light, pure fragments of the web itself, spun into him, weaving strength, speed, power far beyond what he had in life. The first soul consumed. The boy looked up at him, tears streaking his face. Why would you? Because I am Spider-Man, Evil Peter said softly, almost lovingly. And this is the only truth the web hides from you. He vanished into the shadows, leaving the boy kneeling in the blood of his hero. The city burned, the web shrieked, and across countless realities, Spider-Men and Spider-Women felt a chill crawl down their spines without knowing why. And far away in Oscorp's shattered bunker, Harry Osborn woke again in the middle of the night, heart hammering. He stared at the ruined remains of the chronal lens, its shards faintly glowing. He didn't need to ask. He didn't need proof. He knew. Peter was back. The 8 dropped through the tier like insects caught in a drain. The chronal breach Harry had forced open the night before had reformed on its own, drawing them in whether they were ready or not. For long seconds there was nothing but wind, screaming light, and the sensation of being stretched across infinity. Then came impact. They landed hard in the ruins of another New York. The skyline was cracked open, skyscrapers leaning like broken teeth, their glass eyes dark and hollow. The streets were littered with cars left to rust, newspapers fluttering through the air with no one left to read them. A city abandoned, gutted, forgotten. Ultimate Spider-Man staggered upright, brushing dirt off his knees. Okay, not home. Not even close. Where are we? Iron Spider scanned the wreckage with mechanical limbs twitching. Parallel 616B, if Harry's machine didn't misfire. A branch reality. But it's decaying. Look. He gestured skyward, where great green fissures split the sky, light pouring through like blood from a wound. This world's already collapsing. Flash clicked his helmet shut, fists clenched. And you think that's a coincidence? They began moving, cautious but drawn by instinct, down the ruined streets. The silence pressed in on them, broken only by the creak of wind through the hollow windows. And then they found it. The first body, A Spider-Man face down in the street, his suit shredded, his chest caved in as though torn apart from within. His mask was ripped, his hands still clutched a broken web line. Around him, faint glowing strands of silk drifted upward into the cracks in the sky. MJ knelt beside him, throat tight. "He's one of us." "Not anymore," symbiote Peter muttered, voice thick, tendrils shifting uneasily across his back. "He's been drained." "Drained of what?" Ultimate asked, his voice trembling. "Everything." Before they could speak further, a sound split the silence. Slow, deliberate. Clap, clap, clap. They turned. From the shadow of a collapsed building, he emerged, his frame taller than Harry remembered, bulkier, as though every stolen soul had been woven into his muscle. His claws gleamed in the fractured light, his mask twisted into that hell-born grin, and his eyes burning red, bottomless. "Harry," evil Spider-Man said softly, his voice carrying across the street like a whisper wrapped in fire. "You've been looking for me." Harry froze. For months, he had told himself this day would come, but nothing could prepare him for the reality of that face again. The face of his best friend, his brother, his rival, warped into something unholy. "Peter," Harry whispered. "No!" the monster said, stepping closer, dragging his claws across the wall as he moved. Sparks fell like fireflies. "Not Peter, not anymore. He died with your war. I am what he became." He spread his arms wide, mockingly welcoming. "The god of spiders." The 8 fell into position instinctively. Flash raised his fists, symbiote's tendrils bristled. Iron Spider's legs spread like spears. MJ lowered her mask. For once, they stood together. Evil Spider-Man only laughed. It was hollow, empty, and yet it shook the street. "You bring children to fight me. A girl, a boy, a soldier who killed his soul years ago. Even my own ghosts. How touching." "You killed him," Harry said, voice trembling but steady, pointing at the body in the street. "You're consuming them." "I'm liberating them," evil Spider-Man replied smoothly. "Every thread they wasted on heroics, every drop of their power, I've claimed it. I've become what the web always intended, the one spider to end all others. You can't stop it, Harry. You never could." And then he struck. The battle exploded in an instant. Evil Spider-Man moved with impossible speed, claws slicing through the air. Flash blocked the first strike but was hurled backwards like a rag doll, his armored suit denting as he slammed into a wall. Symbiote Peter lunged, tendrils lashing, but evil Spider-Man caught them mid-air and ripped them apart. The symbiote screaming in Harry's mind as pieces burned away. MJ swung in, boots slamming into his jaw, but he didn't even flinch. He caught her ankle mid-kick and flung her into a shattered bus. Ultimate Spider-Man fired webs frantically, but they sizzled into nothing against his claws. Harry leapt forward, his mask snapping over his face mid-air. He landed on evil Spider-Man's chest, driving fists into his face again and again, screaming with the rage of years. For a heartbeat, it almost felt like he was breaking through. Then claws raked across his ribs, pain seared through his side, hot blood spilling. Harry fell to the ground gasping, clutching his wound. Evil Spider-Man loomed over him, raising a claw for the killing strike. But then something flickered across his face. Not hesitation, mockery. He lowered his claw and leaned down close enough that Harry could feel the heat radiating from his burning veins. "Do you feel it?" Evil Spider-Man whispered. "Every time I kill one of us, the web bends closer to me. And when it breaks, I won't just rule one world. I'll rule all of them." And with that, he vanished into the fissures above, the sound of his laughter echoing in the crumbling sky. The 8 were left broken, scattered across the ruins. Blood pooled around Harry's hands as MJ dragged him to his feet. Ultimate Spider-Man's voice cracked, his mask spattered with dust. We can't beat him. He's not Peter anymore. He's something else. Harry's breath rattled, his eyes hardening even as pain surged through him. Then we'll become something else too. The city groaned around them, fissures spreading wider. Evil Spider-Man was no longer a ghost. He was hunting, consuming, growing stronger with every kill. And the war had begun again. The bunker smelled of smoke and iron. Blood still stained the floor where Harry had collapsed after they dragged him back through the breach. His ribs were bandaged, his skin pale, but his eyes, those eyes, still burned, restless, awake. He refused rest. He refused silence. The others did not share his resolve. Flash pounded a fist against the steel wall, the sound echoing like a cannon. We're not ready for this. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't Parker. It wasn't Spider-Man. It was a damn demon, and we almost died in 10 seconds flat. Symbiote Peter leaned in the shadows, his black suit restless, tendrils twitching. His voice was low, dangerous. He was Parker, or he was what Parker became. And if he's feeding, he's only gonna grow stronger. You all felt it. He's not just killing them, he's absorbing them. Ultimate Spider-Man sat hunched on the edge of the table, his mask pushed up, his hands trembling as he held his head. I saw him. I saw him kill one of us, like it was nothing, just tore him apart, and he smiled. He smiled while he did it. His voice cracked. How are we supposed to stop something like that? Iron Spider stood apart, arms crossed, mechanical legs twitching with barely restrained agitation. We stop it by being disciplined, by not running and half-cocked like we did today. But that assumes this is even a fight we can win. Tell me, Harry. His eyes cut toward him, sharp as glass. Did you know he was still out there when you built that machine? Harry shifted painfully in his chair. I suspected. Iron Spider's gaze hardened. You suspected, and you dragged us into a death trap without telling us. MJ slammed her palm against the table. Enough! You think yelling at him is gonna change anything. He made a mistake, yeah, but we're all still here. We can still fight. Fight. Garfield's Spider Killer finally spoke, his voice calm but laced with venom. He leaned against the wall, eyes dark beneath his messy hair. That wasn't a fight. That was slaughter. I've killed before, but what he did, it wasn't just murder. It was hunger. He looked directly at Harry, his tone cold. And hunger doesn't stop. Ever. The silence that followed was heavier than the battle itself. Harry forced himself upright, his body screaming against him, his voice a ragged growl. Listen to me. He's back, and he's stronger. If we turn on each other now, we're giving him exactly what he wants. He's going to keep killing, keep eating, and every time he does, he'll grow closer to breaking the web. We either stand together, or we die alone. But even as he spoke, the other's eyes told him the truth. Doubt had already set in. That night, when the bunker fell into uneasy quiet, Harry lay awake in his cot, staring at the ceiling. Every breath hurt. Every heartbeat reminded him of the claws tearing across his ribs. But worse than the pain was the memory. Peter's voice twisted into something alien, whispering God of Spiders. The web trembled again. Across universes, evil Spider-Man's hunt continued. In one reality, he slaughtered a Spider-Man who had joined the Fantastic Four, his white and blue suit shredded as claws ripped through his chest. In another, he found a Spider-Woman who had fought for decades, her hair silver beneath her mask, and drained her as easily as the boy before her. In yet another, he cornered a grotesque, six-armed spider monster and tore him apart in the dark, drinking his strength until the creature's screams faded into silence. Each kill made him stronger. Each scream echoed through the web. And in every universe, those still alive felt a faint ripple of dread, like a spider's thread plucked in the night. Back in Oscorp's bunker, the 8 gathered again days later, but they did not stand as one. They sat far apart, eyes hollow, silence replacing unity. The weight of what they had seen pressed down, crushing their resolve. Harry looked at them all, his hands gripping the steel table so tightly, his knuckles went white. He could feel it already. The team was cracking. And somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered that maybe MJ had been right from the beginning. Maybe he wasn't building survival. Maybe he was building their grave. The Oscorp bunker no longer felt like a headquarters. It felt like a tomb. The air was stale, the walls scarred from their last battle, and the chronal shards, once glowing faintly with the pulse of the web, had dimmed into jagged ruins. Every spider moved with the weight of exhaustion, not only from their wounds, but from the steady gnaw of doubt. The arguments started small. A suggestion here, a retort there, but soon it became constant. "You don't understand," Harry snapped one evening, slamming his palm against the steel table. "If we hesitate, he'll consume another world. Do you know how many screams I've felt in the last 2 days? He's accelerating. He's feeding faster." "And what exactly do you plan to do about it?" Iron Spider shot back, his gold limbs rising in agitation. "Charge another universe half dead? Build another machine that backfires and drags us into a slaughter? Face it, Osborn. You're reckless, and reckless gets us killed." "You'd rather do nothing?" MJ countered sharply. Her voice cracked, not from anger, but from the sheer weight of holding the team together. "We've all seen what he is. If we sit here arguing, we might as well slit our own throats." Flash's voice boomed like a hammer, silencing them. "We're not soldiers in your little war, Harry. We're Spider-Men, Spider-Women, protectors. But this," he gestured to the ruined machines, the scars on Harry's ribs, the haunted look in every pair of eyes. "This isn't protection. This is suicide. Symbiote." Peter's laughter was dry, bitter. "Funny. That's what they used to say about me." His tendrils writhed, eyes flashing toward Harry. "You think you're better than him, don't you? But you're chasing him. Every move you make, it's the same obsession. Maybe you're just a step away from being him." The silence that followed was colder than any battle. Ultimate Spider-Man, the youngest of them, finally stood. His voice shook, but he spoke with more weight than his small frame suggested. "I didn't sign up for this. I thought we were going to help people, save worlds. But all we've done is chase ghosts. I can't do this anymore." He walked out. None stopped him. Harry's throat burned with rage and despair. He wanted to shout, to drag them all back, to remind them of what was at stake. But the words died in his chest, because deep down the fear creeping through the bunker was not theirs alone. It was his too. He leaned over the console that no longer worked, whispering under his breath, "I won't lose again. Not like before. Not like him." Far away, in a fractured reality, evil Spider-Man stood over a field of corpses. Not civilians, not heroes, villains, a sinister six of that world, twisted into dust and silence at his feet. Craven the Hunter's spear lay broken across the ground. The Scorpion's tail was snapped, his armor in pieces. Vulture's wing smoldered, smoke rising into the fissured sky. Electro's body burned like glass, shattered by lightning. Evil Spider-Man breathed them in. He didn't just consume spiders anymore. He had discovered something new. Villains carried echoes of the web as well. Every strike against a spider left ripples across their foes. Their stories intertwined. Killing them fed him differently. A jagged, bitter strength that fused into his bones like steel. But one villain had not died. From the rubble, a broken laugh rasped. Norman Osborn, Green Goblin of this world, dragged himself from the wreckage. Half his mask torn, his glider shattered. Blood streamed down his temple, but his grin was intact. You're magnificent, he croaked. Evil Spider-Man crouched, claws glistening with fresh blood. You beg for death? Norman coughed, blood spraying his chin. No, I beg to follow. The silence stretched. For the first time, evil Spider-Man hesitated. Serve me, he finally said. Voice a guttural command. Norman's grin widened. Gladly. And so it began. Back in the bunker, MJ found Harry alone, staring at the faint glow of the web shards. His eyes were hollow, his shoulders heavy. She wanted to tell him it would be all right, but even she couldn't lie anymore. Because somewhere out there, the evil Spider-Man was not just hunting. He was building an army. And the 8 were already breaking apart. The web trembled again, louder this time, as though every strand was a nerve set alight. Harry felt it in his bones. Even without the chronal lens, he knew. Another universe was dying. Another spider was gone. And he was powerless to stop it. In the bunker, what was once a war room now looked more like a graveyard. Broken equipment scattered across the floor, bandages piled in corners, half-eaten food trays left abandoned. The 8 had shrunk in spirit, some in presence. Ultimate Spider-Man hadn't returned since walking out. Flash stalked the halls in silence, his armor dented and unpolished. Garfield's Spider-Killer cleaned his blades methodically, as though waiting for the day he'd turn them on his own allies. Only MJ and symbiote Peter lingered near Harry. Even Iron Spider had begun distancing himself, the cold suspicion in his eyes sharper with every passing hour. Harry leaned over the table, knuckles white. We're running out of time. He's not just hunting anymore, he's growing. Feeding on villains too. I can feel it. Symbiote Peter's voice slithered, bitter but calm. Then he's evolving. That's what predators do. His eyes glowed faintly in the dark. And if he keeps evolving, we're not his prey. We're his fuel. Elsewhere, in a reality that still pulsed with life, evil Spider-Man moved like a storm. This world's Kraven had hunted him, stalking rooftops, setting traps, luring him into the jungle of Central Park. But the hunt ended in ruin. Evil Spider-Man dangled Kraven by the throat above his own snares, claws piercing through his lion-emblazoned chest. Strong, evil Spider-Man murmured, almost admiring, but not strong enough. Kraven's last breath rattled out as his body crumbled to dust, power consumed. The shadows shifted, watching, waiting. Scorpion stepped forward, tail lashing, armor gleaming green beneath fractured light. His voice hissed through broken teeth. You killed him like nothing. You killed all of them like nothing. Evil Spider-Man's gaze turned. Then serve me, he said simply. Scorpion lowered his head. Yes, master. One by one, worlds bent to him. He found alternate goblins, each broken differently. Some proud warriors, others cunning tacticians, but everyone hungry for purpose. He found scorpions, cravens, lizard men, even twisted sandmen. Those who defied him were consumed. Those who knelt became his soldiers, their wills chained to his burning aura. Within days, his army spanned 6 universes, bound not by loyalty, but by fear. And fear was stronger than faith. Back in the bunker, fractures deepened. Iron Spider slammed a schematic onto the table. You're blind, Harry. Look at this. Every time you power that cursed lens, you make another crack in the web. For all you know, you're causing half these incursions. Harry's blood boiled. But MJ stepped in, holding him back. "Don't," she whispered. "That's what he wants, to divide us." But Garfield's spider killer only smirked darkly. Maybe division isn't the worst idea. Maybe the only way to survive him is to cut the weak links. His eyes shifted toward Ultimate Spider-Man's empty cot, then toward Harry himself. Starting with the ones who can't carry the weight, Harry's fists clenched, trembling with rage and grief. The team was unraveling in his hands, thread by thread, and he could feel evil Spider-Man pulling those threads from afar, laughing in the spaces between worlds. The final straw came not with words, but with screams. Through the bunker walls they heard it, a ripple across the web. Dozens of spiders crying out at once, voices silenced mid-breath. Harry staggered, clutching his chest as though his heart itself had been clawed. Evil Spider-Man had struck again, and this time he hadn't just killed a spider, he had massacred an entire branch. Whole worlds gone, whole bloodlines erased. The bunker fell silent, every spider staring at Harry. For the first time, none spoke, because they all knew what it meant. The god of spiders wasn't just feeding, he was winning. The first sound was not thunder, it was silk. A strand snapping, then another, then 100, then 1,000. Each one resonated through the bunker like the cracking of bones, a cosmic scream vibrating in the marrow of every spider's body. Harry doubled over, his mask discarded, his face pale as he clutched his chest. The others followed, MJ gasping, Symbiote Peter snarling, Iron Spider collapsing to one knee. Garfield's spider killer gritting his teeth until blood stained his lips. The web was breaking, and then they saw it. Through the chronal shards, the web of life itself loomed, no longer infinite and unyielding, but tearing apart strand by strand. Great cords of light, thicker than skyscrapers, snapped into the void like frayed ropes. Universes winked out with each break, entire timelines erased in silence. And at the center, suspended in the ruin, was him, evil Spider-Man. His body glowed with stolen power, veins burning like molten rivers beneath skin that was no longer flesh. His claws extended into barbs of light, fangs dripping fire. His chest bore the symbol of a spider carved into bone, pulsing with every heartbeat like a second heart. And his eyes were endless pits of red flame. Around him swarmed his army, goblins shrieking, scorpions clashing their tails, cravens snarling like wolves, a Sandman variant towering like a collapsing dune. All bent, all enslaved, their wills devoured. And his voice carried across the multiverse, not spoken but woven through every trembling strand. I am the web. The 8 barely had time to react. The air cracked open above them, and they were dragged into the core, into the collapsing web itself. No city, no ground, just endless strands of light, unraveling beneath their feet. Universes flickering like candles before being snuffed out. Harry landed hard, his mask shattered, blood slick across his ribs. MJ rolled to his side, pulling him up, her own mask torn, but her eyes fierce. The rest scattered into battle instantly. Flash charged headlong at a goblin, his fists glowing, the crash of armor against glider echoing like thunder. Symbiote Peter unleashed a storm of black tendrils, ripping through cravens and scorpions, but screaming as each tendril burned against evil Spider-Man's aura. Iron Spider's gold limbs clashed against Sandman, sparks showering as the two titans collided. Garfield's spider killer fought with savage precision, his blades cutting throats, his movements mechanical, merciless. It wasn't enough. Evil Spider-Man descended among them, claws slashing, strength beyond comprehension. Every strike shook the strands themselves. He hurled Flash into the void. He ripped tendrils from symbiote Peter's body, drinking their essence like wine. He broke Iron Spider's arm, mechanical legs shattering like toys. And when Garfield's Spider Killer lunged with both blades, Evil Spider-Man caught him by the wrists and drove his own claws through the killer's chest. Garfield gasped once, blood bubbling against his lips, before his body crumbled to dust in Evil Spider-Man's hands. The God of Spiders absorbed him without a word. Harry tried to rise, but his body betrayed him. He crawled forward across the collapsing strands, his blood dripping into the void. MJ knelt beside him, holding him up. "We can't win," she whispered. Her voice broke. "Harry, we can't." He looked into her eyes, broken but defiant. "We have to." But Evil Spider-Man loomed above them now, claws dripping with Garfield's blood, his aura blazing so brightly that the strands themselves bent beneath his presence. He looked down at Harry, and for one fleeting instant there was recognition. Not mockery, not rage, just recognition. "You," he said softly. "You're the only one who remembers. You've always been the thorn. But thorns are meant to be plucked." He raised his claws. The villains surrounded Harry and MJ, circling like wolves, ready to strike. The web screamed louder, strands snapping in avalanches of light, universes collapsing like dominoes into the void. And then Harry shouted, not words, not commands, but truth. "Look at you. You're pawns. Every one of you. He'll use you, and when you're empty, he'll drain you too." For the first time, the army hesitated. Craven faltered. A goblin looked down at his claws. Scorpion shifted uneasily. Evil Spider-Man's eyes blazed with fury. "They are mine," he lashed out, tearing through half his own army, drinking their souls in a frenzy. Screams filled the void as villains collapsed, their essence flooding into him, until he burned like a sun. The survivors recoiled in horror, and Harry knew this was it. The end. Evil Spider-Man had become something beyond Spider, beyond human, beyond even Mephisto's design. He was a god of broken stories, a devourer of his own kind. The web bent toward him, strands shivering in worship and fear. The Eight were no more. The army had shattered, the universes were falling. And Harry Osborn, crawling forward through blood and ruin, realized he had only two choices left: to die here, forgotten, or to find a way to kill the God of Spiders.